So today's video is going to be focused on peptides for TRT, so ideal add-ons for people that are on TRT.
Welcome to this channel. If you want to learn more about the most cutting-edge science-based information in the world of hormone optimization, please subscribe and hit that notification bell.
Hello everyone, welcome to the TRT and Hormone Optimization YouTube channel. I'm Danny Bossa, joined with my guest tonight, Francois Tremblay. Comment ça va, Jean-François?
Good, and happy to be here again.
Good. It's not like you can leave the house anyway, right? So.
No.
So we did an intro video with Jean-François a couple weeks back. We've been kind of delayed doing others because he's been busy and with everything, all the stuff that's been going on. Now a lot of stuff got delayed. So he is one of the world's leading researchers in peptides. And we did an intro video all about peptides, just covering, touching up on all the different types of things it can do. And then we were going to do some follow-up videos, really going into a little bit more detail, peptides maybe for performance, or peptides for aesthetics, or peptides for sleep, or peptides for whatever else. So today's video is going to be focused on peptides for TRT, so ideal add-ons for people that are on TRT. In particular for people that are on TRT and may be experiencing some kind of, little complications or little side effects. Maybe your protocol isn't dialed in properly. Maybe you got issues with sleep, or maybe we'll wind up touching about, ED or low libido or all these other types of things, low sperm count. We're going to touch on a number of different things. Before we do, I just spent pretty much the last half hour talking to Jean-Francois in his native French Canadian. And he mentioned to me something about minerals and about people trying to do detoxes. And Jean-François, I want you to tell me what you said. I want you to tell the people watching what you said to me about this, because I found it really interesting. And maybe I'm a dummy, but I never thought of it.
No, like actually, very few people see it that way, because the tendency today is to cure things and not to look at the deep reason of why it's happening. So detox is part of it. Detox, you want to get rid of heavy metals, but that's not the actual cause of the problem. The fact that, it causes problem, but you have to look deeper. And to me, actually, detox are not necessaries. We are physiologically equipped to detox heavy metals. So you're going to ask me, well, why do I have heavy metal then? And the source of the problem is actually, most of the time, a deficiency in minerals. So you'll understand. Most metabolic processes need enzymes to work. And those enzymes need minerals. Magnesium, for example, we know for a fact it's needed in at least 300 metabolic processes. So if you are deficient in magnesium, some of those processes are actually vital. If they don't go, you die. So they need to go. So it turns out that if you don't have enough magnesium, but there are some heavy metals around, the enzymes will use the heavy metal to replace the magnesium in the enzyme, so the enzyme can keep going. But it's not gonna go at the same rate. Instead of being 100% efficient, maybe it's gonna come down to 50 or 40 or 30%, but it's still gonna go. So you're not gonna die. But after an accumulation, because if you're deficient, that means you're not doing anything to, you're lacking magnesium, and it's like in business, if you don't go forward, you go backward. So that deficiency will increase. So little by little, you'll have more and more heavy metal replacing, and first thing you know, in your 20s, you won't notice it, in your 30s, a little, in your 40s, I don't know, I'm tired all the time, I don't know why. In your 50s, more problems, and you won't understand where it comes from because it's an accumulation of so many years. You cannot pinpoint to one thing. So what happened? The solution to that is actually not to detox the heavy metal, because actually your body won't let go of those heavy metals because it's in a stage where no, he needs, and that's why many times detox don't work, because the body doesn't want to let go of those heavy metal. He needs them now. So the solution to that is to replenish your mineral deficiencies, bring them back to normal, not just start to take, because now you have a big hole, which is the deficiency. So before you take maintenance dose, because people they say, yeah, I take now, I started to take last year, I take 400 milligrams of magnesium per day. Well, what you're doing now is you're only not digging deeper. You're yes, this is a maintenance level, but you maintain what you had, so you maintain that deficiency. What you want is fulfill that hole, that deficiency, and when you're back to normal levels, then you go again on maintenance. Once you do that, then your body doesn't need the heavy metal anymore for its processes, and it will release the heavy metal naturally because we are equipped to get rid of heavy metal. You don't need any kind of potion or anything to detox. Uh, the day you don't need the heavy metal, it's going to go by itself. Naturally, we are equipped for that, and very few people see it like that, and that's why they do all kind of things. And the problem is, if you, because it's not only for enzymatic processes, heavy metal like aluminum, it can go in the brain, do same kind of things. But when you start to do a detox, most of the detox agent like ALA or DMSO or whatever people use to detox, most of the time they will pull the heavy metal from where it is, but it's not gonna it's not, some of it, yes, will be excreted, but a lot of it will return, and it may relocate in the other part or organ or something where it would have sometimes a worse effect. And you see it sometimes, people they go on a strong heavy detox and they end up with more problems because they relocated those heavy metals to places where they have worse effects. So the solution to that, and not only heavy metal, just processes, things happening, is just rebalancing and minerals and filling those deficiencies. And I don't want to scare anybody, but it's a fact that at least 90% of North American population is magnesium deficient. Over 40% are zinc deficient. And zinc is directly related to testosterone production. Many times you have people with low testosterone before starting to take testosterone or anything, just supplement with zinc and testosterone levels will go back up. So that's a bit more complex than we think. It's all around nutrition and life in general, hygiene. What is done to be healthy. When you reach 40, 50, and I've seen that with so many people, we had groups of people training for projects and in their 60s and 70s, and you see them for months. So eventually they open up, have this problem, and I would say 70% of their problems was related to mineral deficiencies. But the question and literally they would say, yeah, I don't know, what is it I could have eaten, or in the last week. And no, it's not what you have eaten last week or yesterday. It's what you didn't eat for the last 40 years that brings about those problems today. It goes far. So, and it shouldn't in nature, it shouldn't be like that. Human being is very denaturated. We created our environment, and but in nature there is no free lunch, and we pay for it at one point. So they talk a lot about the blue light at night. That's an example. We're not meant to have light 24 hours a day, so that disrupt sleep, increase stress with all its problem. So that's an example of denaturation. And the problem of that is most of it happened, or the biggest denaturations happened in the last 100 years.
Mhm.
So yes, mammals, humans, we can adapt, but not that fast. If it would have happened over thousands of years, probably would be okay. And I say 100 years talking about the artificial light, but then you add all the other things, and it's in the last 20, 30 years that it all happened. So there is no way, nobody can adapt that fast. So if we don't adapt, well, we get sick.
That's it. Well said. So, guys, I hope that was a good explanation, because I never heard it that way. So I'm going to be loading up on the magnesium now and the zinc. Because sometimes you don't think about it, like, oh, I'm on TRT, I have no issues, I'm fine. Yeah, but there's still stuff happening under the hood that you're not paying attention to. So
No, well, actually, the fact you're on TRT is a proof of what I just said. Something is wrong. Because as I mentioned, you go in other societies, you go to South America. I've been around a lot, South America. I lived in Mexico for many years. I lived for a year and a half in Argentina. I've seen most of the countries in between. I've been in Africa. And what is very common in those countries, and it's a bit shocking. I went to the Dominican Republic with my girlfriend at Christmas, and she was shocked. It's normal there to see an older man, in his 50s or even 60s with a much younger woman. And not just like, not like a sugar daddy like we see here, but really as a couple and, with young kids, and they're a family, they're happy, everything. And they're not on TRT. They're the fathers of the kids, and I've seen in their 70s men giving, impregnating women. They had no problem, but all those problems that we face as a modern society is not there as much as here yet. So they eat more vegetables, so more minerals, less pollution, and some, if you go out of the big city, Mexico City is crazy for that, but if you go out, so you see a difference, and you can, the testosterone replacement therapy. I all the years I lived in Mexico, I didn't see. I don't remember seeing anybody on testosterone replacement therapy. It's like it's kind of a new concept for those people. So,
well, it's not like that here. That's for freaking sure.
Oh no, that's for sure.
You just go outside and you look around and you're like, yeah, there's a lot of sick people out there. So tell me now, peptides for TRT. So,
okay, there isn't that many, but there are a few. There is one actually that could be used directly in TRT, because some people already use a hormone in their therapies, which is the HCG. So as an attempt, most of the time successful, to keep still natural production of the testicles, to produce testosterone and sperm. But most people who use it, they will record A lot of people don't like it, even if you go on small dosages, because it has not huge side effects, but a lot of it can alter a lot the ratio between estrogen and testosterone. So it can bring testosterone where you don't want it to be, and even actually it's a female hormone, so it has receptors even in the brain, and people using it, actually that's pretty much the closest you'll get to know women are affected by their hormonal cycles. Where days they just cry for nothing, and other days sometimes they're a bit more aggressive. When you're on the HCG, many men kind of feel those variation of moods. and some do feel them a lot, actually. And it's we're not meant for that, so we don't want to feel those things. So but you understand what I'm going. It's for the time, because it has been around for so many years. It was used in sports for different reasons. It's really not new, and for the time it was there, that's what there was. But recently, a peptide was discovered. Okay, because HCG stimulate. It's a direct stimulation of the Leydig cells to produce testosterone. So, and that's hence the problem. It's not natural in the sense that you shoot, stimulation is there. There is no natural buffering or control of that stimulation. It does help, because we talked a little bit before about that. In the testicle, the cells, the Leydig cells and the other cells that produce, I forget the name, that produce the sperms, they're like all mixed up. Basically, if you cut the testicle in half, don't try that at home, under a microscope, it's very hard. The tissue is very homogeneous, because they all mixed up, and they kind of talk to each other. So if you stimulate one with HCG, for example, to replace LH, there is no direct stimulation of the other cells, but they're next to each other, and they say, whoa, this one is running now, maybe I should too. So there is that indirect effect, and yes, that will increase your spermatogenesis. Same thing with HMG. It's the other way around. That will work more to increase spermatogenesis, but that will increase your testosterone too by the same process. Now, if you
Just
take
so we're
both,
clear, you're talking about FSH, correct?
yeah,
Follicle stimulating hormone. Okay.
yeah, so they have they both stimulates both cells, but one much more than the other. The other one is stimulated by an indirect effect. But you take those compounds, it will be direct. There is no natural control over it. Now there is, again, back to that new peptide that's called KISS peptide, peptin 10. It's a fraction of a bigger peptide, kispeptin, but the kispeptin 10, basically, it's not the direct stimulation of the testicles. It works, receptors are in the pituitary, I think, and it will raise in a more natural fashion the LH and LSH levels to more naturally increase your testosterone and spermatogenesis. So it's basically devoid of side effects.
So is it more the pituitary? It's sending a signal to the pituitary to send the signal for
exactly.
LH and FSH production,
That's right.
versus the HG or HG that just
direct.
directly.
Yeah, it was
okay.
pituitary. Well, the pituitary sends the signal to the hypothalamus, then sends it to the. It's a two-step thing. So the stimulation is not direct. It's by stimulating the higher centers, then down the chain that natural stimulation will occur. So it's a much better replacement. One, for that reason. Two, it's actually cheaper. So that well, it is a factor to consider.
What is the typical dose for this, and what's the method of
It's
administration, the frequency?
well, it's sub-Q again, being a peptide, zero point 0.1 milligram per day, and it's so new. And in tough cases, maybe 0.15, like as a very high dosage. And what we don't know, because many times when you use peptides, if you stop, there is some peptides you would take for 10, 15, 20 days to get a particular effect, then you stop the peptide, and that effect would be sustained for some time, months before you would need to do it again. So what we don't know right now, and I have people that are doing it now, then they will stop and we'll have blood tests done to see how long after, let's say you do 3 months, how long it takes for the levels to start to drop again. So probably you could eventually cycle it, but it's too early to know the actual times. Maybe you do it for a month, you stop for a month, or you do it for a month. We don't know yet. Probably
Right.
there will be some time of some kind of protocol associated, but it's too new to have those numbers yet.
And there's no measurable side effects. There's no other effects that
Nothing,
you've
nothing,
seen, or and
nothing at
I
all.
guess there's no real way to know what this would do long term, if anything. Because we just don't have that data, right? So
Yeah, but there is this thing in research and science that it's kind of put aside, but we used to use that a lot. It's called educated guess. So, and my guess is there is no long-term side effect to that kind, because the good thing with peptide, it's a very targeted action. So you don't see side effects from using peptides, even those we have used for decades. So we would know, and no, there is no side effect. It does what it does, and that's the end of it. Um, they're practically devoid of short or long-term side effects.
gotcha.
One, because they're naturally occurring in the body, so it's not like you're introducing something that's not supposed to be there. Uh, Many times you're just introducing more, or replacing when for some reason there is less than there should be. But my experience, usually the only side effects you'll ever get from peptides are not from the actual peptides. Growth hormone secretagogue.
Right.
The actual peptide that makes you secrete the growth hormone doesn't have side effect. But if you secrete at one point too much growth hormone, you'll get side effect from the growth hormone. You understand? It's not a
Yes.
side effect of the compound. It's a side effect of its effect. Or some people, for example, who have autoimmune condition, they may have very bad reaction to peptides because their autoimmunity will react to the peptide. But that's not a side effect of the peptide. It's a side effect of their condition. It's not the
Yeah.
peptide that causes that. It's their condition that brings about that effect. So per se, peptides so far, I don't know. The one we use, they're deprived of side effects.
Good. Okay, so guys that were watching, in case you didn't catch the whole thing, KISS Peptin 10, it's called, a viable alternative to HCG and HMG, where when you're taking HCG, it stimulates specifically LH directly, not necessarily so much FSH. HMG kind of does the opposite. I think it does stimulate LH a little bit more
Yeah,
than,
by an indirect effect. Yeah.
yeah, but it's still doing it directly versus taking kisspeptin. You're basically telling the pituitary to send the signal down the chain to produce more in a more natural way. And the peptide is a natural substance found in the body versus, an enzyme
Exactly.
from the urine of pregnant women that we take from HCG.
And another thing is, if you stimulate directly, you will create more inhibition of, because then the body will sense that it's working fine down there, so it will even less stimulate because it doesn't need it. As
Right.
if you stimulate at the upper level. That's why I believe there would be a time that the effect will continue even if you stop the peptide for a while,
Right.
because you won't create that negative feedback, or not so strongly that if you use HCG
Yeah.
or
Because
HMG.
it does suppress your own natural LH when you're taking
Exactly.
HCG. That's what people sometimes don't get. Like, oh, I'm stimulating my LH, and then my LH will rise without it. Like, no, you're actually suppressing your LH
Even
because you're
more.
giving you're
Exactly.
taking an exogenous mimicker of it. So just like when we were taking an exogenous mimicker of testosterone.
That's right.
So that's a very cool thing to look at. There's a lot of people that come on that has questions about HCG, and mostly about HCG. A lot of people haven't heard about HMG, but they're seeing a lot of people that have side effects. When I took it myself, I felt like crap, broke out an acne on my back like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Did it bring up my sperm count? Yes, but at what cost? If there's something you can do it a little bit more on a natural level, that would be
Well,
cool.
most of the time when you see side effects like that, it's pretty much the same side effects you would get from when you start a testosterone therapy. It's the debalancing of hormonal ratios. So, again, relating to women, that's why many women around their periods, they start to break out their skin, because there is different ratios of hormones. So you're doing okay on testosterone, you introduce that, bang, and because the effect is not long lasting, then it's just talking about, because HCG has some estrogenic effect, so that's why you have that side effect. As if you take kisspeptin 10, you don't see that because you don't have those hormonal mimicking side actions.
Yeah, what we're seeing with HCGs, it seems to be spiking estradiol in some people, and we tell everybody
Yeah.
estradiol is good, but you don't want to spike it and throw that ratio
No,
out of whack.
you want to keep those ratios.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so other than kisspeptin 10,
Well, there is another peptide that does increase LH and LSH. It's called DSIP, the deep sleep inducing peptide, and it has shown, but I wouldn't use it for that because you need to take a lot and for a longer period of times. But it could be okay when you're on TRT. For many people, because it's hard to do it perfectly, right? So that can start to bring about some problem, like sleep problem. So that peptide though would be good for that, and it doesn't induce sleep, but and I made that mistake. A lot of people do. They say, "Oh, so if I take it, I'm gonna fall asleep better." No, it does nothing for falling asleep. It induces. It's a deep sleep inducing peptide, not sleep inducing peptide. So you could take it in the morning. That wouldn't make you sleepy during the day. What it will do is, once you fall into sleep and it's time to get deep sleep, it will happen, and that will increase the length and the deepness of your deep sleep. So it's going to make your sleep much more restorative. And for those who monitor their, like with the Oura Ring or the Fitbit watch or any of those sleep, they're pretty good. Maybe not at giving you a precise number, but they're really good. That I've learned many years ago. When you take measures, the most important thing is to always measure the same way with the same instruments, because if the instrument is not precise, what will be precise is the variation. So it maybe
Right.
if it tells you you slept in deep sleep for an hour, maybe it was 45 minutes, or who knows. But if you start to track and there is an increase of 30%, well, that 30% is real, and that's a precise number. So if you follow that, you'll notice many times that people that report not sleeping well, it's directly related to very short periods of deep sleep. And many times they don't need to sleep more hours, they just need to increase this deep sleep period to feel rested when they wake up.
Got it.
So the SIP is really, really good for that.
And this is something you can just take on a regular basis, or is it something you have to cycle, or
Yeah,
is
well,
it?
it has kind of a resetting effect. So you take it for 2, 3 weeks, and then you stop, and the effect continues up to a point. Because if you don't remove the source, well, it will eventually come back. So usually, what people do, they do it for 3 weeks. They're very happy, and maybe after a few months, they do it again. Once in a while, just to reset again their deep sleep, and off they go with that.
And this is something that's taken once a day.
Once a
Is it?
day, again, you do it maybe for 3 2 3 weeks.
And dose,
And
typical dose is how much?
250 micrograms, maybe up to 500, 0.25 to zero point 0.5 milligrams per day.
And
That's about it.
is dose kind of determined in regards to, like, are you a big guy? Are you a small girl? Are you your weight? Or is it just like, just start slow, try it out, see, and
And
then you work
many
your way up?
times the dose is determined not by body weight or gender, but by what we call body surface area.
Okay.
And actually, when you convert a dose from mice or rats or dogs or whatever to human dose, it's there is a conversion factor that is based not on body weight; it's based on the body surface area. So many times when I give dosage like that, that works for everybody. That's because it's not based on body weight. It's based or gender. Because you could have a 110 pounds woman and a 250 pounds man, and that's a huge variation in body weight. But it's a very small variation in body surface area. The surface covered by,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually a much better indicator uh,
Gotcha.
of effect. So that's why many times. Uh, Sometimes the body weight is taken into account, but for like the SIP, it's more that. So man, woman, it's about the same.
Okay. So now we've talked about alternatives to HCG and HMG to stimulate the testes, stimulate natural production, stimulate the sperm, and another one now for deep sleep. The deep
Hmm.
sleep one actually interests me quite a bit, because this brain of mine needs to rest more than it has been. So what else do you have up your sleeve?
Well, that would be directly related for people on TRT. Well, tell me what kind of problems they may face, and I'll tell you if there is a peptide or a group of peptides for
Okay.
that.
So let's say if you're taking people that are initially starting off where there is a lot of fluctuating of hormones going on, some of them can have issues with sleep. Too little testosterone can cause issues with sleep, as well as too much can cause issues with sleep. I've been on both sides, and I've experienced with both. Feel like they can get some of them people can get water retention or bloating. Some people can even experience some anxiety because the testosterone is very stimulating to CNS. Again, we mentioned before about testicular
Okay,
atrophy,
we kind of
spermatogenesis. We touched on that already. Um, And then there's also obviously a lot of guys are taking TRT just they want the aesthetic benefits. We could probably touch on a different video about, you know, I want something to accelerate fat loss.
Yeah.
Somebody wants something to add muscle without having side effects. You did offline start telling me a little bit about SARMs.
Yeah,
And
okay.
we've never
Before
discussed
there
that in
is,
the history of the channel, but
there is
by all
maybe
means.
one peptide before we switch to SARMs. We could talk about the anxiety aspect of TRTs or just life in general. It's called Selank. It's a peptide that was discovered in Russia. It's widespread use now. It's all over the planet. It's really good. It's kind of a nootropic in the sense that it increases blood flow to the brain. It increases BDNF production. You know, that protein that heals and repair the brain. But one of its effect, it's anxiolytic because it binds to the GABA receptors. It has affinity for the GABA receptors in the brain. GABA is that neurotransmitter that when you have a lot of it, you're pretty calm. When you meditate, actually the best way to raise GABA, it's meditation. You know, after you meditate and over time you're in a more calmer state. That's the reason GABA is increased. But that peptide does increase GABA, but so it works amazingly good for anxiety. The only problem, without side effect, like you would get with medications, uh, again, it is injected. So, but it's report about 80% absorption. Actually, a lot of people they use it in a nasal spray, and you get pretty much all the effects. And it's really, really good for anxiety, or if sleep, because many people they don't fall asleep because they're too anxious. You know, they start thinking my mortgage, this and that, and it doesn't stop. That's a very good peptide. You know, to calm down. You take it nasal or injection a couple of times, maybe early evening and an hour before going to bed. That's gonna calm down everything, and that one favors a lot falling asleep and better sleep.
And then if
Selank.
only we had something for the deep sleep. Oh, we do. Perfect.
Yeah, so you know, it's you know, you put all those pieces together, and yeah,
You got some sleep going on.
yeah.
Good. Okay, awesome.
So actually directly helping or supporting TRT, those are the peptides I could talk about for now. But there is that other category of compounds that I've kind of specialized into, and they are SARMs. What are SARMs? It's easy. Well, specific androgen receptor modulators. You're going to tell me what that is. What is it? Well, testosterone is an androgen receptor modulator, ARM. So they came out with that class of compounds that has some of the activity of testosterone. So that's why they added the specific, meaning muscle retention and building and bone retention. That's what we call the anabolic effect of testosterone. Testosterone has androgenic effects too, so they are the other effects. On the skin, for example, increase oil, sebum production in different tissues in the body. All those side effects you would call side effects, because if you take too much they become side effects, are the androgenic effect. And for decades science have been trying. They started with anabolic steroids, so they started to modify the testosterone molecule, and that was the goal, to make it more anabolic and less androgenic. But they were successful up to a point. But now that new class of compounds, they have been amazingly successful. So they are highly anabolic and mildly or no androgenic, and in practice, they're not the best of them. So why I'm introducing you that, because when you start TRT, a concern, your body change. It changed before you started, and many times to reverse that effect, you would need to take more than TRT levels of testosterone to reverse those effects. Uh, a bit like what I explained with minerals. Now you had a hole, so if you just replace, then it's going to take a long time, if it does, to fill that hole. So to me, a better solution would be to add a SARM to a TRT. So instead of going crazy on higher dosage of testosterone, you just go to a normal TRT level and you add a SARM to it, where you will get that extra anabolism effect. And more so because a lot of people in their 40s, 50s, they start training. They say, okay, yeah, they took them long, but they figure out, yeah, that's a good thing I can do for myself. And, the aesthetic aspect of it and all that. So I've seen so many times people, they say, okay, I'm taking 150 milligram of testosterone, then I'll just bump it up to 300, and I'll get that buffing effect and everything. Not the best of ideas, but that you can get with a SARM. And it's actually, when they started to do formal research on it, and that's back in the 90s, and they stated that they were candidates to replace testosterone in testosterone replacement therapies. But that's not the best of ideas, because you still need some of those androgenic effects, because on the brain, for example, and testosterone has receptor in pretty much every tissues in the body. So you do need your testosterone. But they were deemed that good that at the beginning they thought, hey, it could even replace testosterone because it's safer. And there is one of them that was proven actually to protect you against your own hormones, talking about the prostate. And in a couple of studies, it was shown that, over time, all men will get prostate cancer. It's a question of time. Most men die before they get it. But the process is there, and if you live long enough, you will get prostate cancer. So, and that's due to higher DHT, which conversion of testosterone to DHT, and that will happen. But it was shown that SARMs, it turns out, that has affinity for the receptor on the prostate. So it higher than testosterone and its derivatives, DHT, but it doesn't activate the receptors. So it stops the growing of the prostate, and in some instances, actually, it's reversed. The prostate would get a bit smaller.
Which SARM is this?
RAD,
RAD 140?
yeah, RAD 140. It was shown to protect yourself against your own hormones, basically, for the prostate. And that same one was shown to have neuroprotective effect for the brain. So it does have some affinity in the brain tissues after all, but positively. So it turns out to be, and it's, all SARMs are about 90% milligram per milligram. They're about 90% as anabolic as testosterone. So in practice, they're pretty much the same. But another one that is very well known, because athletes, and that boxer, a few athletes, it was in the newspaper, they got called Ostarine. Ostarine is 20 times less androgenic than testosterone. So it's as anabolic, but 20 times less androgenic. RAD 140 is 90 times less androgenic. So that difference is so mild that in practice there is no androgen effect at all. So to me, that's technically the best, the perfect anabolic, because you keep all the anabolism of testosterone without practically no androgen effect. So to me, that would be the best to use with to supplement TRT if you wanted to.
And how would that compare to, say, LGD 4033? Or...
LGD has a ratio of 10:1. It's 10 times less androgenic. And that's why it became so popular for two reasons. One, because it's one of the first one. That's the one of the first one to be studied. It's the one that has the most published studies, so it brings about more confidence in that compound. And two, because it has a mild androgenic effect still. It became very popular with younger people training in the gyms. Why? Because one of the androgenic effect of a compound is water retention. So basically, and water retention, when you train, it means you pump a lot more. So, for a young kid, he goes to the gym, he gets all pumped up. Oh, I like that compound. He loves it. But after that, you realize that's transient and it's not the real thing. It's only water retention within the muscle, but it doesn't stick around. And so when you get older and more sage, how do you say in English? More
wise,
when you get wiser, you then look more at those more specific, less androgenic compounds.
Got it.
And one question I get a lot too, they say, yeah, but they're new, we don't know. The same question you asked me before. But in 20, 30 years, what will happen? Well, they're not that new, actually. A lot of the research done on those compounds was done in the 90s. And it turns out that SARMs are actually a derivative of another drug that we had since the 60 or 70, like very early. And it was shown to not have like side effects, like after 30 years you won't grow a third leg or a tail or something like that. And it's a derivative. I remember because there are three categories. Anyway, it was an anti-androgen. So it was a compound that basically, even if you had high testosterone, it would bind to the testosterone receptors to block them. So doesn't matter how much testosterone you have. And one of the application of that was it was a castration drug. So it doesn't matter how much testosterone you have around, it wouldn't bind to its receptor because that drug would block them. So some guys somewhere thought, hey, what if I modify it so it keeps that affinity very specific, but instead of blocking the receptor, it would activate it. So they started to tweak with the molecule, a couple of changes, and bang, SARMs were born, basically.
So how come they haven't really? New. Yeah, no, I know they've been around since the 90s, and sometimes even earlier. But why haven't they gotten, or do you know the answer why they haven't gotten more popular?
I would say there are many reasons.
They talk about.
I would say one, because they slept on it. The actual market for those drugs is very limited, so it's not something that pharmaceutical company go crazy about. It's not like they put that on the market and suddenly they're gonna make billions of dollars, like a new antibiotic or let's say a new drug for the virus now. And this would be whoa, so it's not in their priorities. And when I say they slept, when it because now in the 90s, TRT was inexistent. It was not something that people would do. Generally, it was like the only people who would do TRT were people who were involved in sports that used anabolic steroids before, and they wanted to maintain, so they continue with a bit of testosterone, a bit of steroids, just minimal levels to maintain that kind of shape. But it wasn't a widespread concept. So they slept on it. They let the patent expires. So they cannot patent it. They cannot get exclusivity on them, most of them. So there isn't no money they can make out of it. So there is no point marketing it.
I did try, and it has been a few years, but I did try RAD 140, and I tried LGD 4033. I tried MK677 as well. MK677.
It's not a SARMs.
It's not a SARM. It's a growth hormone secretagogue.
That's right.
I guess we'll leave that one out. But with the RAD in particular, I grew fast.
Of course.
And I was on a decent testosterone dose, and I bulked up quite fast. The only real side that I got is I find libido started going, and I backed off. And as soon as I stopped, I just went, came right back to normal. With LGD, it was probably kind of the same thing.
Were you on TRT at the time?
Yes, yeah. I got other friends that tried it, and they have zero side effects. And they
because for a while we thought that SARMs were inhibitive, but they're not at all. What they do, they decrease SHGB levels in the blood.
SHBG, yeah.
BG, the buffering albumin of testosterone. So when you decrease that albumin, your testosterone level decrease because you don't buffer it. The excretion rate is a lot after, because now it's more free testosterone, so it's free to be excreted too. And people, they say, oh, it decreased testosterone levels, so it's inhibitive. But then if you look at the full blood test of people on SARMs, you'll see that the LH and LSH levels don't drop at all. So there is no inhibition.
This you're talking about guys that are not on TRT, natural
That's
guys.
right.
Okay.
So when you are on TRT, that doesn't happen, because now, even if your SHGB goes, BG lowers, it doesn't matter, because if you do injections of testosterone, your buffer now is that oil droplet, because it's released slowly. So that is your buffer. So it won't change anything. That drop, maybe for some reason, for some people, it goes down too much, SHBG, and you get that effect. But I've seen hundreds of people personally, and that libido effect is rarely there, rarely. As you said, most people you talk to, they didn't see that. And because it's neuroprotective, it has receptors. What I've seen with many people, it's better mood. It's really mood improving. It's ridiculous. I even had one guy, actually, I was sharing an office with him a few years ago, and people were shy to ask him directly, and after a week of him being on RAD 140, people were coming to ask me if he was on cocaine, because the change in his mood was so drastic. That they couldn't believe that's the guy is on cocaine all the time now. He cannot be that happy all the time. But I said, no, he's not on cocaine. For some people, it's really drastic. That's the mood improvement effect.
To everyone watching, because I know how much a lot of you guys like making fun of the videos we do. So if you see these tripping up on saying SHBG and he's saying SHGB or LSH. It's because in French all the letters are rearranged. So
Yeah,
he's
so
saying the French, and in English it's like, what is it in English? So
yeah, we
that's
have
why
to
it's
think
not
for a
because he doesn't know
second.
what the hell he's talking about. It's because in English it's a totally different order of letters. He's probably not used to saying too often. So, okay, so this was pretty cool. So also, guys, Jean-Francois makes peptides with CanLab. Is CanLab your you own CanLab or your?
Oh, I owe it. I do everything. I
does
even
everything.
answer the phone. I do everything.
And the website is canlab.ca.
.net. Net.
.net.
Well, that's more of a web store. If you want a bit more information on the compounds, and I don't write too much, it's CanLab on Facebook. We have a page. And I'm pretty active in a few groups. I think I introduced you to one on Facebook. So I do other little videos and answer questions. And if a question on peptides comes up, instead of answering individually each time it pops out, then I will do a short podcast with the person who started the group, and it's nice. That's it's. Can I say it? Do you want me to say it? It's
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
It's biohacking, superhuman performance, nutrition, and peptides. I think something like that.
Okay.
So you could link it if you want. But there are really good discussions, very legit questions that are not related to TRT, but I'm sure you'll know that most people, once they start TRT, they realize, okay, I need something to improve my life in general, well-being, and that opens them up to other things like peptides and better nutrition, better sleep, and they start to become aware of all those things. So that's a group that aim when it's performance, it's not in the title of the group, we're not talking sport performance, it's life performance, to perform at your best. So
awesome.
that's a really nice group to go in, I believe.
Good, because there are a lot of doctors I know and have known in the past that I don't really deal with anymore that are very much into testosterone is the thing. You take testosterone, you take thyroid, and those two things, you got everything you need. Maybe throw in a little pregnenolone, DHEA, and that's all you need, and the rest is diet, nutrition. And guess what, guys? There's a whole bunch of tools at your disposal that aren't necessarily anabolic steroids or anything else that can just improve your sleep, improve your skin, improve your cognition, improve things and it's biohacking what we do, guys. It's the whole point of this channel.
It
just
is
learning about any little thing that we can do to tweak what
that's
nature
the beginning of, for those that's their first step, that's the beginning of biohacking basically, and that's what it is. Because at this point, and for the reason they started, it was to improve their life. I would not say live longer, because who knows, that anti-aging movement, I'm kind of part of it, but it's like, well, it's not proven yet because it started not so many years ago, and we don't know if it actually works. If I die at 120, then I will tell you, yeah, hey, look, it works. But nobody got there yet. But what I'm a strong proponent is healthy aging. And the same reason that there are many factors that contribute to getting old, there are many factors and components or things you can do to kind of slow it down or stop it, and in some cases now maybe reverse it a little. So there is not one thing you can do that's gonna fix all the problems. It's not gonna happen. You will see improvement because that's a first step, but there is so much more that can be done. That's amazing.
Awesome. Anything we didn't touch on, Jean-Francois,
Well, for tonight,
for today?
pretty much it. Yeah. Well, we'll do another one, and we can go a bit more into those things if people want. Yeah, that would be
Absolutely.
interesting.
Absolutely. Thanks again for your time. Always a pleasure, sir.
Likewise.